Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to be presenting a research inshallah which shows that in John 15 to 16 Jesus called the one to come after him Ahmad. So the word in question is Baraklitos, and in ancient Greek writings this word means called besides or a legal advocate. Why is this? Well, as the Oxford Lexico, which is a dictionary produced by Oxford lexicographers, points out, Parakletos comes from the prefix para, which means alongside, and the passive verbal adjective kletos, which means to call. So parakletos means called besides, or basically legal advocate. But a number of Christian and secular scholars have doubted that this is the meaning of parakletos in John's Gospel. Glenn Nielsen summarizes the problem. The term parakletos is a crux exegetica, there being little agreement in the various attempts to explain its meaning and origin. Scholars readily acknowledge that the most problematic issue with the term is its meaning, particularly the active elements ascribed to it considering its passive form. That is, there is a visible gap between the title Paraclete and the functions John assigns to it. The difficulty reveals itself in the attempt to translate the term. Some suggestions are comforter, advocate, intercessor, convincer, strengthener, helper, and friend, but none have been met with widespread approval. They all fail to capture accurately and comprehensively John's use of the title, a title to which he has given such roles as teacher, reminder, witness, and convictor. Anthony Billington, after mentioning the etymology of Baraklitos, we suggest that such a definition based on etymology alone has little to do with Baraklitos in John's Gospel. Gary and Burge also writes, finally, the etymology of Baraklitos and its Johannine meaning has proved to be a baffling problem. And so because of what all these quotes have pointed out, and we're actually going to look at this problem in some more detail later on in the video, inshallah. Because of this problem, as pointed out by these scholars, it seems clear we should search for a different meaning, an alternative meaning of what Baraklitos may mean in John's Gospel. Now let's look at what the Quran may have to say on the matter. Allah says, وَإِذْ قَالَ عِيسَى بْنُ مَرْيَمَ يَا بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ إِنِّي رَسُولُ اللَّهِ إِلَيْكُمْ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيَّ مِنَ التَّوْرَاةِ وَمُبَشِّرًا بِرَسُولٍ يَأْتِي مِنْ بَعْدِ اسْمُهُ أَحْمَدَ فَلَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ قَالُوا هَذَا سِحْرٌ مُبِينٌ. So according to the Quran, Jesus called the one to come after him Ahmad. What does Ahmad mean? Well, it has to do with being praised, but specifically it means more praised than others because it is modeled on the comparative af'al form in Arabic. This is pointed out by Fakhruddin Razi, who is a distinguished classic linguist. He writes that Ahmad could have two possible meanings. Number one, exaggeration in the active sense, meaning he praises more than others praise. And number two, exaggeration in the passive sense, so it could mean the one who is praised more than others are praised. Now, I want you to notice, again, the comparative nature of the word. Ahmad means more praised than others. And this comparative element of the name Ahmad is very important because of what we're going to look at now. So coming back to the word parakletos, remember it comes from para plus kletos. Looking at kletos in some more detail. So what is its root? Well, it's either derived from the root kleo in the sense to tell of, glorify, praise, make famous, celebrate, or it's derived from the same root kleo but with another etymology from its alternative form of kaleo, meaning to call. Now in this first definition you also have the idea of praise, and that's pointed out by this source which mentions that it's usually translated as praise. It's usually translated as what? Praise. So kleo, which is the root for kletos, does have this meaning of praise. Now from the root kleo, you also get the noun form, which is kleos. And Thayer's Greek lexicon actually defines this word as glory, praise. The noun form is also defined as epainos by Hesychius. So Hesychius defines kleos with the Greek word epainos, and epainos means praise. So kleos is the noun form and kletos is the adjective form. So with that in mind, when we go to parakletos, we now see that kletos could be used with the meaning of praised, famed, glorified. What about the prefix para? Well, as the LSJ lexicon points out, para could be used with the meaning of beside, near, by, but it could also be used in the sense of more than, in excess over, over and above. When we go to Thayer's Greek lexicon, they actually give us a number of examples from the New Testament where para has this meaning of more than. And they write, hence it is joined to comparatives. So that's very important because remember, Ahmad had that comparative nature to it. It meant the one who's more praised than others. So with all that in mind, parakletos, para in it could be used with the meaning of more than, and kletos could be used with the meaning of praised, famed, glorified. Hence, parakletos could mean the one praised, famed, glorified more than others. And remember, the reason we can do this, the reason we can re-examine what parakletos could mean in John's Gospel is because it does not have its typical definition of legal advocate within the Gospel of John. Rather, it has a different meaning within the Gospel itself. And we're going to speak about this more later as well, inshallah. So summarizing what we have for now, parakletos could mean the one called alongside or legal advocate, or it could mean praise, glorified more, in excess, over and above. And this second meaning actually matches the Arabic Ahmad with great precision because they both give the comparative meaning of being praised in excess over. Other Greek alternatives like peri in perikletos, poly in polykletos, tele in telikletos, they all fail to accurately give the meaning of the af'al al-tafdil form in Arabic, which makes Ahmad have that comparative aspect. Because peri means all round, poly means much, tele means far. But para, with the meaning of more than, is what matches Ahmad most closely. Most closely, why? Because it has that comparative element to it. By the way, even if there was no such thing as the paraclete problem, even then this analysis would make sense because since Jesus said Ahmad, right, if you want to translate it into Greek, this is how you do it. So we'd actually expect them to say parakletos because that's how you translate Ahmad in Greek. And actually, this also explains why parakletos with the meaning of Ahmad does not appear in other Greek literature, because it's the translation of the unique name that Jesus said. Of course, the Greeks did not know the name Ahmad, right? It's like expecting them to know the name Abu Bakr or something like that. This was a unique name that Jesus mentioned, and that's why it's been translated in the Gospel of John from Jesus' saying. So a possible objection to the idea that the Parakletos is a name in John's Gospel is the fact that it says the Parakletos with a definite article. So like I wouldn't say the Jeff, right? But actually in Greek you can have the definite article before a proper name. So like for example, Mark 2:15, Jesus is called the Jesus. Jesus is called the Jesus. And in fact, in the Gospel of John, you have plenty of examples where you have the definite article before names. So possible objection to the idea that John 15-16, Parakletos there is the name of the one to come, is that in John 14:16, the Parakletos is called another Parakleton, which would make Jesus the first Paraclete, so how can it be a name? Well, the answer to that is that John 14 is actually a different tradition, and it's written by a different author, so it's not actually relevant to us. So it's not that Jesus said John 14, then he said John 15, then John 16. Actually, he just said one speech, and then we have two different versions of that one speech. One of that versions in John 14, and then the other version in John 15, 16, and actually even 17. So Parakletos in John 15-16 can mean Ahmed, and then it can mean something different in John 14. And this is actually what Porter and Evans point out, New Testament scholars pointing it out, that if it seems improbable that different meanings of Parakletos should be present in such close proximity, it may be replied that John 14 and John 15-16 are now widely regarded as variant forms of a final discourse, presumably composed to suit different situations. Also, just by the way, another paraclete, the Greek can also be interpreted as another who is indeed a paraclete, or another, namely the paraclete, which would mean that Jesus is not the first paraclete. But that is much more rare as a construction in Greek. And then same for 1 John 2, which calls Jesus a parakleton. Right? And again, 1 John 2 has a different author from the one who's writing John 15-16, so it's irrelevant. The other thing about 1 John 2 is that it's not actually a saying attributed to Jesus. No, this is just the author of 1 John 2 talking. So it's not relevant for us because it's not something Jesus himself said or is supposed to have said.